Okay guys, good evening and welcome to the Eldar Sim JTCC. This is the GR3 league that's proudly presented by PJ Parcels. I'm your host for this evening. Yes, it is the one and only Hoppers in the comms box for this evening. Yet again, qualifying is just about to get underway, but as we'll quickly get some of the guys that are out doing their outlaps, we'll go through the points very quickly, and then we'll get on with tonight's action. We're here at the glorious Nurburgring GP circuit, famous for F1, but also notorious for the Nurburgring Nordschleife. So in first place is Craig Thomas on 65 points, followed by Adam Morgan on 61, followed by Lee Fitzy. So it is a Welsh affair in the top three positions. Lee Fitzy is on 50th, and then you've got Brian Moncani in the Honda NSX on 48. Then you have Brian Ross, who's currently on screen, on 48. Then you have Chris Wheatley, which is, he was here, yeah, he's here on 42. Then Stu Shelton on 40 points. Then you have Dean Atkinson on 28 in the Lexus, the Soul Lexus RCF. He's on 28 points, 26 rather, not 28, I do apologise. And we do get Dan Cope, who is at the moment, he said he's struggling around here at the moment. He's on 22. Then you have Neil Hall. I don't think Neil's actually going to be returning. I'm not too sure. He's on 16 points. Then you have Nathan John, who's here. He's on 16 points. Then you have Bruno Batika in the NSX, currently on 14. Then you have Phil Wilson on 10 points. Then you have Steve Stones. I believe Steve is here. Yes, he is. He's on 8 points. He's actually tied with me on 8 points. I'm not racing no more, so I've decided to concentrate on the commentary side for this league. Then you have Ron Bouts, I believe that's how you pronounce it, on 6 points. And I believe some of the guys at the moment are going to be going into pits to change to super softs. So yes, qualifying is underway. We do have 10 minutes of qualifying, which is where it's going to get very interesting this evening, because not only is it going to be 10 minutes of qualifying, but it is also going to be very interesting come the race. So at the moment, Stu Shelton in the beautiful green and white checkered Toyota Supra is currently on screen. As I say, during the race, it is a 50-minute endurance race, excuse me, and it will be potentially starting on either mediums, hards or softs, but each 10 minutes you have to change to either medium, soft or hard, depending on which compound you decide. Obviously you've got to have super softs. That is only for qualifying, I believe. I don't know whether they were changing it, the rules. I think the rules have slightly changed, that you know, super softs aren't now in for qualifying, I believe, because most people were forgetting that it is the because obviously it's the first tyre compound to change for when you obviously go into the pit lane. They've obviously decided, well, at the moment, you know, it's causing a bit of issues, so I think they've abolished the super softs. So they've decided that, you know, it's going to be just softs, medium and hards. Obviously if it was wet, it'd be intermediate and probably wet tyres. But yes, it is very exciting, as we've had 2 rounds already. We had Dragon Trails and also Interlagos, and both races, funny enough, were won by Craig Thomas in the beautiful, as Chris Wheatley goes 156.4 at the moment. So yes, Craig Thomas, the real Osman, Lee Fitzy's done a 159, 56.9 rather. Craig just coming into the NGK chicane. Stu Shelton with a 157.5. Yeah, Craig just in that beautiful stickered up Toyota Supra won both races at both Dragon Trails and of course Interlagos, so it will be very much interesting to see exactly what they can do this evening. So obviously qualifying is going to be very interesting, especially around here. It's obviously going to see as Adam Morgan drifts it out of the final turn there, but who knows what will happen this evening. Obviously qualifying is going to be very tense, but it is going to be very much interesting. We've got Excalibur there, just pulling off to the side of the track. I don't know whether he's struggling or he's just trying to keep out of people's way coming down the front straight at the moment. So yes, it is going to be a very interesting race. So at the moment it is Chris Wheatley on pole position, followed by Lee Fitzy and Stu Shelton, and then obviously Nath John, followed by Brian Ross, who is the series organiser for this event. So it is going to be very interesting to see. So it will be very much interesting. Dean Atkinson there in 6th place in the Lexus. Then you have, as Chris Wheatley goes a bit faster there with a 156.223. And then Lee Fitzy is still into 2nd place at the moment in that Toyota Supra. So the Supra is going to be on a massive charge. The Supras so far this season have technically gone to... so Brian Ross has done a 157.069, and then Dean Atkinson is dropped down. He's dropped down. Where is he? Where is Dean Atkinson? Oh, Dean Atkinson's actually gone up to pole position. I do apologise. I was trying to find him. Adam Morgan up into 5th with a 156.8. So Dean Atkinson at the moment in that sole Lexus RCF, Dan Cope with a 156.3, 58.3 rather. Do apologise. With just under 3 minutes to go. So it is going to be very interesting this evening compared to what we had. Potentially going to be very interesting to see exactly what they do this evening. As I say, both races at Interlagos and Dragon Trails were both dominated by the Toyota Supra concept, which Craig Thomas gladly races. Steve Stones 11th fastest at the moment in the VGT, 158.4. oh, he's had a bit of lag there. Don't know whether that's him or it's just exactly. It just looked like he was having a disco there. Excalibur in 11th and Brian Moncani in the 6th at the moment. So the two Belgian lads are back of the field at the moment with a minute and 46 to go. Stu Shelton up into 9th at the moment. Chris Wheatley retakes pole position from Dean Atkinson at the moment. So it is going to be very much interesting. Memorex's Bruno Batika up into 5th place at the moment, so that's leapfrogged Adam Morgan. So Bruno Batika in the 2nd of the NSXs up into 5th at the moment. So we've got a minute and 16 seconds to go. Adam Morgan potentially lifted himself up into 3rd place with a 156.530. So that's going to be very interesting as Chris Wheatley comes up to the Schumacher S. Quite an interesting corner if he can get that flat out. Excalibur is up into 10th now, so Excalibur splits Dan Cope and Steve Stones at the moment. Brian Moncani at the moment. Basically 13th at the moment, the NSX at the moment, struggling around here. It looks like, but it is a brightly coloured NSX and it is a really nice car to look at, I must admit. But with 30 seconds on the clock to go before qualifying does end, some of these guys may not be able to complete another lap. But it will be very much interesting to see exactly what goes on. So, what's going to happen? We do have potentially the guys who are crossing the line now potentially will get another crack at getting another lap. Brian Moncani now up into 10th. So Steve Stone's at the moment in the VGT, potentially under a lot, gonna have to do a lot of pressure there. Well, he's having a bit of issues there with lag, I believe, but be very interesting. Dan Cope at the moment 12th fastest in that blue and white beautiful VGT. They're all very nicely designed, don't get me wrong, they do have some very special requirements. Craig Thomas actually up to 3rd fastest, dead on the line at the moment. You do have potentially Dean Atkinson 2nd in that Lexus RCF, so that's a good effort from Dean. He must be wary that he's going to be probably here again on Friday for the Eldar in Porsche Caymans, so he's probably going to get a nice warm up. Potentially some of these guys may be seeing how well they do. Chris Wheatley actually still on a massive flyer going into the Schumacher S there. Excalibur up into 8th now with a 157.271. So that's going to be very interesting to see exactly what happens. Brian Moncani in 11th at the moment, so that's going to be very interesting to see what he can do from 11th. Not his best qualifying session, but we shall see. We'll go on board with Brian going into the NGK chicane for the final time on his qualifying lap. He's got Chris Wheatley sort of behind him at the moment, but it will be very interesting. Steve Stone's still 13th at the moment, so a bit unfortunate. Brian Moncani's still 11th, so that's going to be very interesting come the race. As I say, these cars are very... Oh, excuse me, and then drop the controller. Basically, these cars are very easy to race. We do have the GR2s this evening as well, hosted by Nick Sargent and of course Darren Baldwin in the comms box for that. So you do have the best of both worlds of the basically GR3s and also the GR2s, so you can pick which one you would like. So here we go. It will be very interesting because you've got Chris Wheatley followed by Dean Atkinson, followed by Craig Thomas, followed by Adam Morgan and Lee Fitzy, and Memorexis, and of course Brian Ross, Excalibur, Nave John, and of course the rest of the field forming up. We do get the green flag from the back of the grid to say everyone is back from their warm-up lap. We are about to get the green lights to turn on from the starting gantry any moment now, and we're underway for round number 3 of the PJ Parcels JTCC GR3s. Dean Atkinson gets a good start going into turn number 1. Is he going to lead the way, because Chris Wheatley's right behind him in that VGT? It looks like Craig Thomas has had a bit of a spin, so that's been a bit unfortunate. Can we catch it on the replay? No, we can't, which is a bit unfortunate. Bruno Batica there, potentially now 13th. Bit of chaos in the opening laps, but you've got Lee Fitzy and Adam Morgan potentially having a bit of a battle together. The two black Toyota Supras, I believe they are sort of the same style, liveried, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Dean Atkinson's getting swamped by them at the moment as Chris Wheatley leads the race, but oh, didn't want to do that. I do apologise, I pressed the wrong button. potentially, as we see here further up the field, Chris Wheatley leading the race, followed by Dean Atkinson, potentially going to be putting under threat from Lee Fitzy, and then you've got Adam Morgan, potentially Lee Fitzy actually made the move just while we were looking what was going on. So look what's happening further back. Stu Shelton there in the other Supra, so it is VGT from Lexus from Supra, then it's the NSX of Brian Moncarney up into 6th place at the moment. Dan Cope doing a stellar job in 7th place. Brian Ross putting Nathan John under pressure going towards the NGK chicane. Brian Ross actually makes the move stick. Nathan John there in that Bride Supra, potentially pushing on still, potentially to try and get back up into the top 7. Craig Thomas in 10th place, potentially having a bit of a nightmare start. I don't know exactly what happened. It looks like he got spun around into turn number 1, but this time he's making a move on Nate Fletch going into potentially turn number 1. He does that very spectacularly. Nate John runs a bit wide, which is right, allowed Steve Stones to come up close and personal potentially in the VGT. Then you got Bruno Batika in 12th, followed by Excalibur in 13th. Don't know what happened to Excalibur, but at the moment going back to this battle between Lee Fitzy and Dean Atkinson, potentially as Lee Fitzy goes on the inside into this turn, it will be giving the Supra a place from that Lexus there. Potentially the Lexus has the upper legs, but potentially Adam Morgan's also going to be chasing him down, and so is Stu, so it's going to be very amazing to see what they can do. Potentially Chris Wheatley up the road at the moment so far in this VGT, potentially doing a sensational job. Potentially wants to win his first race. You got Lee Fitzy now potentially trying to escape from Dean Atkinson in that Lexus. The Lexus there under threat from Adam Morgan. Stu trying to push onto this group as well. Brian Moncarney also trying to do exactly the same. You've got Craig Thomas now 7th. I believe Dan Cope. Oh, Dan Cope knocks him a bit wide there, but Craig keeps it together. Dan Cope side by side, potentially going up into Advan, potentially towards the NGK chicane. Brian Ross is also there. Brian Ross is going to try and make a move. He does. Nate John actually tries to swamp both of them. Hits the back of Brian's Supra there, potentially, but it's just potentially a battle there. What was a couple of cars weren't going to go into the battle, you see, but Brian Ross and Steve Stones at the moment potentially battling for 9th and 10th at the moment, but it's going to be very close. Adam Morgan runs a bit wide going into turn number 1 there, which has allowed Dean Atkinson potentially to get away, which is now allowed Stu potentially to try and take 4th place from Adam Morgan, which is going to be very interesting to see what exactly happens. We got Brian Moncarney in that NSX as well, also trying to chase him down. Craig Thomas there, not having a good run at the moment in that Supra concept, but going back to this battle between Adam Morgan and of course Stu, also Dean Atkinson in that Lexus, potentially trying to hold on for 3rd place at the moment. Lee Fitzy just up the road going out to the hairpin, potentially trying to escape from these guys, which he is doing. You've got Dean Atkinson in that Lexus. You can just hear the Lexus and the Supras potentially gaining up onto him. It's going to be very interesting. You've got potentially Adam Morgan potentially trying to chase him down. Stu's trying to do exactly the same. Craig Thomas there at the moment. Steve Stone's up into 8th. I believe Dan Cope's lost a couple of places to Nathan John as well. Brian Ross having a bit of a nightmare this evening. I don't know whether he's suffered a bit, but it looks like... can we catch? No, we can't, unfortunately. We'll have to have a look at some point, but so far Dean Atkinson's now dropped down to 6th. I believe he got swamped going out of the NGK chicane, which is unfortunately pushed him back a bit. You've got Brian Montgarney trying to chase down Stu and of course Adam Morgan, so the NSX trying to now catch up to the Supras as Stu tries to do exactly the same with 43 and 40 seconds to go till the checkered flag drops in this race. But it is going to be very interesting. It is all or nothing, potentially seeing what happens with Craig Thomas, because he wants the massive charge, potentially trying to make it amends from that spin at the start. Steve Stone's there in the VGT having a bit of technical issues, but you've got Nath John also in ninth, followed by Dan Cope, followed by Bruno Batika and Excalibur Brian Ross, unfortunately at the rear of the field at the moment. But Chris Wheatley eking out that advantage from Lee Fitzy at the moment. It's 1.3 seconds. But Lee Fitzy at the moment setting the fastest lap on lap number 3 with a 1:56.8 at the moment. Potentially it's still a long way to go in this race, but as I say, anything can happen. Adam Morgan now under threat from Stu Shelton, potentially going to be pushing on for quite an epic race this evening as Stu tries to get onto the back of him. We'll try and go on board with Stu. Yes, we'll go on Stu's bumper cam, potentially trying to chase down Adam Morgan towards the Advan corner and then going up to the NGK chicane here, which is going to be very interesting. Adam Morgan brakes, Stu's also braking, but he is a bit closer. Brian Montgarney also in that NSX, he's also trying to latch onto the back of the Supra Stu at the moment, potentially going into the final turn. So the 43 machine's potentially going to be chasing. It's going to be very interesting to see exactly what happens. So Brian Montgarney there trying to make a move. Obviously Dean Atkinson's also there. Steve Stone's still in 8th, followed by Nath John, followed by Dan Cope, followed by Bruno Batika, and of course Excalibur Brian Ross, unfortunately at the rear of the field at the moment. But going back to this battle between Adam Morgan and Stu and of course Brian. But you've also got Dean Atkinson also on the charge. Dean Atkinson gets a bit loose in that Lexus there. You just see it just stepping out, potentially for a bit of issues there for Dean. He's probably going to have to push on his that Lexus there. It's only in its 3rd meeting, but potentially he's going to be on fire come the end of the race. You've got Stu Shelton actually making a move on Adam Morgan, going into the hairpin. Oh, this is going to be very close and personal, going up towards the Schumacher-esque. You've got Stu actually makes the move done. You've got Brian Montgarney potentially doing it, trying to do exactly the same, but he can't get anywhere near Stu at the moment, potentially holding on for dear life, trying to hold on to 3rd. But looking at likely what's going to happen, because the first round of pit stops are going to be due to start anytime soon, probably this lap or next lap. But potentially Stu Shelton at the moment holding on for dear life, potentially trying to get away from Adam Morgan there. But you've got Brian Montgarney trying to get through into the NGK chicane for the 5th time. Dean Atkinson there in that Lexus, potentially trying to chase down these guys. So he's trying to chase down the Supra and of course the NSX. Craig Thomas now up into 7th, Steve Stone's 8th, followed by Nath John and Dan Cope still 10th. Bruno Batika is 11th, Excalibur 12th, and Brian Ross 13th at the moment. But it's looking likely that Brian Montgarney. That is all the NSX gives the Supra a bit of a tap going out in the first corner there. But it is going to be very close. And potentially going to be Brian flashing the light saying, "Come on Adam, out the way mate, I want to get past you as quick as I can." But it's looking likely there is going to be very much interchanging battles this evening, I'll tell you this. Adam Morgan at the moment so far putting it under a lot of threat. Brian's still flashing the lights there as we get into the opening bit of the opening 10 minutes of the race. It is still going to be very interesting with 40 minutes to go. But is Brian Montgarney going to try and make a move, or is Adam Morgan going to try and escape from him? We'll see about that in the NSX. Potentially catching up. Potentially Lee Fitzy just going further up the track towards the Advan bends shortly. Chris Wheatley's actually eking out that advantage from Lee Fitzy. He's actually so far holding on. Brian Montgarney there, potentially trying to get past Adam Morgan, potentially going into a bit of a tap, but Brian Montgarney actually gets the move done. So Adam Morgan now drops down to 5th place. Dean Atkinson still there in that Lexus, but you've got Adam Morgan potentially now getting close to Brian Montgarney for potentially 4th place yet again. It is going to be very interesting to see what exactly happens. So Dean Atkinson also in that Lexus potentially pushing on. It's going to be very interesting to see exactly what happens. Craig Thomas 7th, Steve Stones 8th, Nath John 9th, Bruno Batica 10th, and of course Excalibur 11th. Dan Cope now 12th. I believe he's gone into pit lane. Yes, he has. So he's got the racing mediums on at the moment. And Brian Ross 13th. But at the moment it's going to be very interesting that any of these guys are going to be pitting, because Dan Cope's pitted, I believe. You know, he's trying to obviously push on, he's trying to make sure that, you know, these stints are done correctly. Brian Montgarney there potentially actually trying to squirm the living daylights out of that NSX, trying to get traction and trying to get grip. Potentially as he goes towards the hairpin. It is going to be very close. It is going to be very personal. The crowd are loving these battles. Potentially here in the commentary box you can just about see exactly how close these guys are going to get. Brian Montgarney there, he's run a bit deep into the hairpin, but he's still got it going. He's obviously exited it better. Adam Morgan there trying to latch onto the back of him as well. Potentially as we go towards potentially 37 minutes. It's going to be very much interesting. Dean Atkinson there got Craig Thomas behind him, so Craig's going to try and look for treble victory, but at the moment he's going to have to try and work his way back up into that rhythm and potentially that groove there at the moment, potentially. But he's going to be okay. Steve Stones in 8th, followed by Nath John, followed by Bruno Batica and Excalibur, Dan Cope, and of course Brian Ross. But at the moment this battle going into the NGK chicane, or going out as the NSX gets really squirmy. It's going to be very interesting because Adam Morgan's now caught up to the back of Brian, potentially trying to put the power down quicker. But it is looking likely that also Craig Thomas is also onto the back of Dean Atkinson in that stickered up Toyota Supra. He's going to try and make a move as we actually see two moves between Brian Montgarney and of course Adam Morgan, and of course Craig Thomas does exactly the same to Dean Atkinson. They're both all learning from each other. Brian Montgarney actually now escapes back up into 4th. Adam Morgan is also there. Craig Thomas now potentially under threat from Dean Atkinson as well, so this is actually fantastic. Not only is the battle for 4th and 5th, also 6th and 7th are potentially giving us some entertainment as well. But this is going to be very close indeed. Still got Craig Thomas trying to chase down these guys, potentially trying to hold off Craig Thomas now as he still gets back ahead of Dean Atkinson. You've got Steve Stones in that VGT at the moment. So you've got Nath John followed by Bruno Batica and of course Excalibur, Dan Cope, and of course Brian Ross at the moment. But going back to this battle between Brian Montgarney and Adam Morgan with 35 minutes to go, it's going to be very close and it's going to be probably very twitchy. Guys must be sweating in their cars at the moment, potentially trying to hold on to potentially whatever position they can get. It's still early days in this race. It's still 34.5 minutes to go. Potentially it could go either way this evening. You know, we could be seeing a new winner, or we could see if Craig Thomas gets his act together. He could potentially. Oh, Adam Morgan tries to go up the inside of Brian Montgarney, going into the NGK chicane. He's lost a bit of ground there now, so the NSX has gained a bit more gap from that Supra. But actually Brian heads to the pit lane, so that'll bring Adam Morgan up into 4th place. Steve Stones has exactly done the same, so You've got Craig Thomas there under threat from Dean Atkinson, potentially for 5th place at the moment. Dean goes on the inside. Oh, he actually makes a stellar move into turn number 1. But Craig Thomas is also going to be there, potentially fighting back. We'll go on board with Craig Thomas in that Toyota Supra. We'll just go on board with the Welshman for a couple of minutes and potentially see what he can do here. It's going to be very close because look at that Lexus. He's trying to catch up to the back of that Lexus. But it's looking likely at the moment. Chris Wheatley's actually leading the race quite severely. I believe he's now trying to catch Lee Fitzie's trying to catch him up, but looking at the gap, it's 2.4. Comes down, but then it shoots back up again. Potentially, is Lee struggling? Yes, he's got a bit of tyre wear on that Supra. But it's going to be very interesting. I'll tell you what, Leif John potentially heading towards the hairpin. Brian Moncani just looking at what he's got. He's got racing mediums and a bit of fuel on board. Steve Stone's on racing mediums and a full tank of fuel. That's potentially going to try and improve. Bruno Batica at the moment potentially pushing on. Dan Cope on the mediums and having a bit of a half a tank of fuel. Excalibur on mediums and a full tank, so that's probably going to potentially do him well. Brian Ross there on the mediums and a bit of almost a quarter of fuel. But yeah, it's going to be very much interesting to see exactly what happens. Dean Atkinson in that Lexus there, trying to escape from Craig Thomas. Craig Thomas there at the moment trying to push on. You know, Stu's actually jumped into pit lane, so it'll be interesting to see exactly what he comes out with tyre wise. But excuse me, with 32 minutes to go, it is going to be very much interesting. You've got potentially some of the faster guys and some of the, probably I'm going to say some of the medium class, because you know not everyone is I'm going to say everyone is a clean racer. They are decent racers, but obviously you know there is different class fields. Brian Ross there struggling at the moment. It's obviously having a bit of a nightmare with 31.5 minutes to go, so it is going to be very interesting. It seems to me that this race at the moment doesn't feel like we're already on lap 10 out of potentially how many laps we do, but you know that's the lap times are relevant. But obviously it's all a game. It's all to do with strategies. Adam Morgan now potentially still 3rd, Dean Atkinson now 4th, with Craig Thomas potentially trying to catch up to the guys that are in front. We'll see what Stu's come out with, the racing mediums and a full tank of fuel, and he's 8th at the moment. Steve Stones is 9th. Bruno Batica, he's just lost it going out of, don't know whether he's lost it going out of turn number 2 there. It looked like he had struggled a bit. Don't know whether that's because of cold tyres, but it will be very interesting to see exactly what happens for potentially the race, as we got Lee Fitzie and Chris Wheatley now diving into pit lane. Looks like Adam Morgan potentially has gone into pit lane. It says, do apologise, yes. It does look like Adam Morgan's been into pit lane, but has he pushed too hard? But we will see potentially what's going on at the moment. So yes, it's going to be very much interesting. Craig Thomas now up into 2nd place. I believe Dean Atkinson's also dived into pit lane, so the Lexus is also going to be involved in the interchanging battle. So what's happening up and down the field? So at the moment Dean Atkinson now comes out of pit lane on the Racing Hearts, potentially. Be very interesting to see what happens. But you've got Lee Fitzie out on the Racing Hearts and half a tank of fuel. Chris Wheatley doing exactly the same strategy So it is going to be very interesting. We've got Dan Cope 9th now, Nath John in 10th, followed by Excalibur, followed by Bruno Batika, and of course Brian Ross the 13th at the moment. But at the moment Adam Morgan now leading the race. He's going to have to pit this lap. He's running out of fuel, potentially on fumes, but it's going to be very interesting. I apologise, just listening to see if the stream was okay. But yes, if you do like what you see here, guys, please do like and subscribe, and also do check us out on Facebook at Eldar Sim Racing. It is going to be very interesting. Craig Thomas and of course I believe Craig Thomas and Adam Morgan, yes, they both jump into pit lane, so that's going to give Chris Wheatley the advantage to regain the lead of the race. So that's going to be very close. Looking at the lap times at the moment as well, it's going to be very interesting to see exactly what happens. So you've got 28 minutes to go, and it is going to be very close indeed, I must say. Got Brian Moncani now also going to be probably up into 3rd place. He's actually recovered quite well from exactly what's been going on for his perspective. Dean Atkinson now will probably jump into 4th, depending on how well the other two actually get on, but it is looking likely at the moment. Just as we join, as I said, Dean Atkinson would have been probably 4th. He's actually now potentially going to be taking Craig Thomas for 5th place at the moment, as Craig has to yield going into turn number 1 there. He's on cold tyres, he's potentially on the racing hards and onto half a tank. He's probably one of the strategist, or probably strategist for this evening. Stu Shelton potentially on the mediums there, Steve Stones on the mediums as well, Dan Cope on the mediums still, potentially with a quarter of a tank to go. Nath John there on the racing hards and also half a tank. Excalibur, quite a bit of fuel, racing mediums. Bruno Batika pushing on, he's slowly running out of fuel. He's on the mediums. Brian Ross, mediums, and just over half a tank. So it is going to be very close and very interesting, but at the moment Chris Wheatley trying to push on. He's potentially going to see what he can do here this evening. It is looking likely though at the moment he's going to be probably on course to potentially do exactly a win, potentially. Lee Fitzy also trying to chase him down. Brian Moncani at the moment going through Advan up TNGK chicane in 3rd at the moment in that NSX. You have obviously Adam Morgan and Dean Atkinson. Potentially has his tyres up to temperature, potentially trying to escape from not Dean Atkinson, because that's Dean in 5th. I mean Craig Thomas there. I do apologise, fans of Craig Thomas, for getting his name mixed up for a second. And then you've obviously got Stu Shelton and obviously Steve Stones, followed by Dan Cope, Nath John potentially. I don't know what's happening. Nath John, he's got an indicator on. Is he trying to make a distraction, or has he just got it on because he's just flicked it on? You got Excalibur 11th, followed by Bruno Batika and obviously Brian Ross. At the moment there's not really major battles, but we'll see what goes on, because Craig Thomas here, the real Osman, probably wants another victory with 25 minutes to go in this race. It is going to be quite close, and it's probably going to be very interesting towards the end of the race, but obviously we have still got a bit of time. We've got Adam Morgan in 4th at the moment, and obviously as we see Dean Atkinson there, potentially, is he running wide or is he just having a bit of an issue in that Lexus? But we'll see, because Craig Thomas has now caught him up to a great speed of knots potentially, but it will be very interesting indeed. So you've got Craig Thomas there trying to chase down Dean Atkinson in that Lexus. Craig's probably going to be wanting a bit of a fight back here. He's obviously, after a bit of a nightmare start, he's potentially now back up into 6th place. Brian Moncani there, potentially in a third at the moment in that MSX. We've got Lee Fitzy in the Supra, and obviously Chris Wheatley in the VGT, but at the moment it's looking likely, slowly but surely, Craig Thomas is now going to be potentially, probably now 5th, because Brian Moncani has jumped into pit lane. So that's going to be very interesting with 23.5 minutes to go. So yes, so Craig Thomas there, now 5th. Stu at the moment in 6th, followed by Steve Stones, and then you've got Dan Cope and of course Brian Moncani. Nath John still with that indicator on, potentially now going to be 9th. Potentially depends, because Excalibur's also jumped into pit lane, and Brian Moncani now out of pit lane on the hards, potentially with a bit of fuel on board, so he's potentially deciding to take another gamble on the fuel. But at the moment you've got Stu trying to take down Craig Thomas for potentially 5th place at the moment, so it is looking likely there is a lot of battles potentially going to be interchanging. But at the moment Stu's trying to chase down Craig, so Craig's gone off to try and push on, potentially catch up to the back of Dean Atkinson. Potentially that Supra and Supra battle, potentially you're going to have to try and push up to potentially get up to that Lexus RCF there. But we'll see what exactly is going on. Chris Wheatley there in that VGT, potentially having a ball of his life at the moment, potentially trying to drift that VGT out of the final corner there. Excuse me. Lee Fitzy also in 2nd, but with 22 minutes to go. Stu's all over the back of Craig there, going up towards the NGK chicane. So that's going to be very interesting. Stu gets a bit crossed up going out of that chicane, but it will be very interesting. Steve Stones in 7th, Brian Moncani in 8th at the moment. Nath John still with that indicator on, potentially at 9th. Bruno Batika 10th, Brian Ross now up into 11th, so that's a bit of a position change, because I believe Dan Cope and Excalibur are on the hards, well Dan's on the softs, but looks like Excalibur's on the hards at the moment potentially. Craig Thomas there, potentially now trying to escape from Stu, but excuse me, he's coughed out everyone's ear. Potentially Stu's trying to actually gain up to him, and it will be very interesting, because not only has Craig got Stu behind him, but Craig's also considerably caught up to the back of Dean Atkinson's Lexus. It's looking likely the Lexus, he's probably going to be going for the pits this time round, or maybe next lap, but we will see exactly what happens as we see who's gone into pit lane there. Bruno Batika now in 13th, topping up his tank of fuel. Chris Wheatley's exactly just on fumes at the moment potentially, but it's looking likely Craig Thomas, just as we join this battle, has caught up to the back of Dean Atkinson. So that Lexus RCF isn't I don't know whether he's having an issue or he's just having a leisurely race at the moment. Chris Wheatley jumps into pit lane, which has also allowed Lee Fitzy up into pit lane, so it's going to be very interesting indeed. Oh, Craig nearly knocks to the back of that Lexus there of Dean Atkinson, but it is going to be very close, because not only have you got the VGTs, or the VGT and Supra battle into pit lane, you've got Adam Morgan now leading the race, so potentially Adam will have a bit of a point. Chris Wheatley rejoins the in 2nd place. What a stellar pit stop, but he's gone on to the softs and he's potentially haven't got much fuel. Has he just changed tyres, or is he just that's going to be very interesting, which has allowed Dean Atkinson up into 3rd, Craig Thomas there in potentially 4th. Stu also trying to put him under considerable amount of pressure, Steve Stones in 6th. Lee Fitzy rejoins in 7th. Brian Moncani 8th. Nath John 10th. Dan Cope now will be 10th because Nath John is in pit lane. Excalibur will be 11th. And Bruno Batika, oh, he gets it wrong out of the NGK chicane now. I think he's outbraked himself. Brian Ross up into 9th now. So this is going to be very close. It's looking likely Dean Atkinson in that Lexus RCF at the moment, potentially on fumes. But we've got 18 minutes and 23 seconds to go in this race, so it is going to be still quite a bit to go. But it's looking likely that Craig's going to try. Oh, Craig's run a bit wide now, which has allowed Stu to get past him. Craig's also on fumes potentially. So Stu's potentially there, gained another place. So 18 minutes to go on the clock. You look at the battle up front. You got Chris Wheatley now up into 1st place. Oh, he's had to make another pit stop because he... Yes, we noticed before, lap before, he didn't put any fuel in. Adam Morgan goes for another round, potentially to try and push on. Potentially Craig Thomas there also doing exactly the same. So that's going to be very interesting for this battle. Looks like Adam Morgan potentially trying to push away from Stu at the moment. So you do have quite a few of the guys in. Dean Atkinson also in that Lexus. Steve Stones also there. So it is looking likely that it's going to be very interesting, because not only have you got the likes of Adam Morgan and Stu, and of course, or Stu gets a bit crossed up there, and Craig Thomas and Lee Fitzy at the moment, potentially Craig's cousin, is probably going to take the lead of the race when Brian Ross jumps into pit lane. So Brian Moncana can potentially get up into wherever these guys go. Obviously Chris Wheatley now with 16 and a half minutes to go is still 6th. Dean Atkinson now 7th. Steve and Dan Cope potentially battling for 8th and 9th at the moment. This is going to be very close to VGTs, having a bit of a door banging battle there. But Steve Stones at the moment gets a bit of a shove out away from Dan Cope. But it's looking likely that Nath John and Excalibur, Nath's still got his indicator on. Excalibur's probably thinking, what are you doing, mate? Are you going to pull over? But it will be very interesting. I say Bruno Batika and Brian Ross now sadly at the tail end of the field again. That's a bit unfortunate for Brian, but it's looking likely Adam Morgan now jumps into pit lane. Yes, he does. Gives the lead to Stu. Craig's also jumping into pit lane, so Craig's going to play it safe with 15 and a half minutes to go, so it's going to be very interesting. So Lee Fitzy there will potentially come 2nd in the battle, and then you got Brian obviously in the NSX up into 3rd at the moment. Chris Wheatley gonna jump. He's probably gonna jump these guys if they don't get their act together, but we'll see. It'll be very interesting. It'll be very interesting to see exactly what happens. It looks like the fuel's taken very long on the cars in pit lane, but 15 minutes to go. Dean Atkinson up into... oh, he's up into 6th, which is allowed because I believe Craig's pit stop with his fuel potentially has pushed him down to 7th at the moment. Dan Cope will be his next. Dan Cope's his target for Craig. So it looks like Craig's going to have to get on with it. Steve Stone's 9th, and Nath John still with that indicator on Excalibur, followed by Bruno, and of course Brian Ross. So Stu at the moment potentially pushing on lap number 18. But it's going to be very interesting indeed. Lee Fitzy there into 2nd at the moment, but Chris Wheatley 4th, Adam Morgan now 5th, and obviously Dean Atkinson potentially trying to push on that Lexus there. The brakes were glowing going into the hairpin, but it is going to be very close. It is going to look like Craig Thomas there. Is he going to try and make his own, try and make it back? Is he going to try and make it 3 wins from 3? We'll see exactly what happens. Dan Cope in that VGT, potentially in 8th for the moment. Oh, he's run a bit wide going out with the Schumacher S there. Stu's also D. We've got Brian Moncani also into pit lane, so that's going to allow Chris Wheatley back up into 2nd place and Adam Morgan 3rd. So it's still going to be an all-Welsh podium. Bear in mind we don't put the commentator's curse on these guys. And obviously Dean Atkinson in that Lexus potentially spied in the fray at the moment. It is going to be very interesting because Craig Thomas at the moment still in 6th place at the moment. He's obviously going to have to try and push on. It is looking likely at the moment though that Stu's rejoined in 5th place, so he's got just wondering how he did. He's on the hards and potentially a bit of fuel on board with coming to 12.5 minutes to go. Dan Cope 7th, Brian Moncani 8th, Steve Stones at the moment in 9th. They've John with that indicator still on. Yes, no, in 10th. Bruno Batica 11th, Excalibur 12th, and Brian Ross 13th at the moment. Go back to this battle. It's looked like Adam Morgan now has got the legs of Chris Wheatley, potentially trying to catch him up slowly but surely. The break into the hairpin. Chris Wheatley has a bit of a slow exit. This is allowed Adam Morgan to potentially trying to go one way and potentially go the other way. They're both riding the curbs, going out of the Schumacher, in and out of the Schumacher S. But it is going to be very interesting as we get down into the break-in point. Oh, Adam Morgan there. Is he getting held up by his countryman, or is he just going to play it cool? Potentially. But Stu there, potentially trying to get away from Craig Thomas. But it looks like that Adam Morgan's going to try and get the move done before the NGK chicane. Does he, or is Chris Wheatley going to try? Yes, Adam gets the move done. Fantastic. It's looking likely Chris Wheatley's now struggling in that VGT because it's now allowed Adam Morgan back. Well, not Adam Morgan, I do apologise. Dean Atkinson up into 3rd place. It's looking like these Stu's getting under pressure from Craig at the moment. It says that Craig was 5th going across the line, but obviously it's not. Dan Cope jumps into pit lane. So we've got just under 11 minutes to go now. Potentially Craig is going to have to try and race like a madman. Potentially there in that beautifully stickered Toyota Supra. Stu's actually trying to defend like mad from him. And potentially going to be pushing Brian Moncani, and it's just not 9.9 seconds from Craig Thomas at the moment. Craig Thomas and Stu, oh, they have a bit of a mirror issue there, but potentially Craig gets past. So that's an absolute stellar move. So it's looking likely Lee Fitzy at the moment, Craig's cousin, leading the race. It's going to be very close and personal potentially for the race. To potentially, with 10 minutes to go, it is going to be very interesting. Chris Wheatley 4th, Craig Thomas 5th, Stu in 6th, Brian 7th, Steve Stones 8th, and Nath John 9th, Bruno Batica in 10th, followed by Brian Ross now 11th, and obviously Dan Cope and Excalibur in 12th and 13th. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Dean Atkinson in that Lexus RCF there. You just see it going into the NGK chicane, potentially pushing on for quite a substantial good results here. If he can get very rounded, very good, he can. It's looking likely Craig's not going to outdo the treble wins this evening, but you never know what will happen. But with 9 minutes to go in this race, it is going to be very close. Steve Stone's still in 8th. You just see him there in the Platinum Plumbing machine. Nath John there, still in 9th. Bruno Batica trying to chase him down, potentially for 9th place. But at the moment, Dan Cope there potentially pushing on, trying to get up into 11th. Excalibur there potentially trying to push on. Lee Fitzy also having a bit of a moment. Well, not a bit of a moment, he's got a bit of a gap now from Adam Morgan potentially. Dean Atkinson also in that Lexus potentially doing a stellar job. It's going to be very much interesting to see exactly what happens. So you got Chris Wheatley 4th, and then you've got Craig Thomas 5th, still potentially pushing on there. Stu in 6th, followed by Brian Moncani, followed by Steve Stones, and obviously Nath John, and of course Bruno Batica, Brian Ross, Dan Cope, and of course Excalibur 13th at the moment. Chris Wheatley just getting a bit crossed up. Has that allowed Craig Thomas to try and gain up to the back of him? Yes, it has. It's going to be very interesting now, because I think Craig's going to be on the mission with 7 minutes to go. It's going to be very close. But yes, it's going to be very close indeed. But yes, so you've got Craig Thomas now chasing down Chris Wheatley potentially in that VGT. The Supra is coming, definitely going to try and make a move, because it is looking likely Craig's on that mission now. You got Dan Cope in 11th at the moment. Steve Stones has jumped into pit lane, but obviously Dan Cope 6 minutes to go. He's obviously having a bit of a squirm in that VGT. Well, it looks like Nath John and Bruno Batica are going to have a bit of a battle. But is Craig Thomas? Oh, Craig Thomas is right up on Chris Wheatley's back bumper now, potentially going in towards the Schumacher Airs. Oh no, it's not, sorry, it's into Advan. I do apologise. Craig is going to try and get the move done into the NGK chicane. Is he going to do it? Oh, Chris Wheatley runs a bit wide, but he's still there. Craig has a squirm in that Supra. It's going to be very interesting with coming to 5 minutes though. It's going to be very close. Let's see exactly what goes on. So you've got Dean Atkinson now in that Lexus in 3rd at the moment. Oh, what's happened to Bruno Batica? Has he had issues? Or was he... Oh, it's a bit of a shame. So you've got Lee Fitzy leading the race with 4 minutes and 45 seconds to go. It is going to be close. Is this going to be one of the best battles? Oh, Chris Wheatley and Craig run a bit wide there. Craig's going to be still hunting him down potentially. That VGT isn't getting away from Craig. Craig has got the VGT in his sights. Oh, Chris Wheatley runs a bit wide. That's going to allow Craig to potentially try and push on. Oh, this is going to be close. But is Craig going to get the move trying to get into the Schumacher S, or is he going to have to wait as Chris Wheatley's putting that VGT where Craig wants to go. So we've got 4 minutes to go, guys. It is going to be very close. Let's have a look. So it's looking likely Dean Atkinson now in that Lexus is potentially going to be pushing on. But it's going back to this battle between Craig Thomas and Chris Wheatley. Craig's going to try and get it done. Goes out of advance. Chris Wheatley has the inside going into the NGK chicane. No, it does not, because Craig Thomas chops the nose off that VGT. It's going to be so exciting now, I'll tell you this. It is going to be very close. You've got 3 minutes and 18 seconds to go. This race has been stellar from start to finish. Lee Fitzy at the moment potentially in that Supra doing a stellar job. Adam Morgan there now in second, followed by Dean Atkinson and Craig Thomas. Is he going to be on a mega charge? Because now he's escaped from Chris Wheatley there, potentially. Stu Shelton and Brian Moncani potentially having a bit of a battle for 5th and no, 6th and 7th. I do apologise. But yes, it is going to be very much interesting to see exactly what happens. We do have Nate Fletch in 8th, followed by Brian Ross now 9th, Dan Cope 10th, and Steve Stone's potentially chasing him down. Obviously Excalibur in the Supra in 12th place. Sadly Bruno's Pratico, I believe his NSX has had a mechanical issue, so it is going to be very close. It's looking likely Craig Thomas is going to try and catch up to the back of Dean Atkinson before the race ends, but we've got 2 minutes to go. It is going to be very close now. It's looking likely at the moment Dan Cope is potentially trying to get away from Steve Stone's VGT, so the VGTs are having a bit of a battle at the back of the field at the moment. But it's going to be very interesting. Obviously Excalibur in that Supra at the moment struggling, but he'll be okay. He's still new to the race, but we've got 1.5 minutes to go with Lee Fitzy trying to know. Well, he's extended that gap from Adam Morgan. He's got 10.037 at the moment, so that's a good gap with. Oh, Chris Wheatley gets a bit crossed up going out the final turn now. That's going to hamper him. But has it hampered him? No, it hasn't, because he's lurking in the background of Craig Thomas, but Craig Thomas has still got that Supra under massive control. They're potentially going to be very interesting with 1 minute to go in this race, guys. There's 1 minute to go. We're potentially on the final lap of the race now. It's going to be very close. So Dan Cope there in that VGT, the blue and white VGT. He's going to have to push on potentially for 10th place at the moment. Steve Stone's in that other VGT, potentially trying to get up and close. Excalibur in 12th place at the moment. But it is looking likely at the moment Craig Thomas is going to have to settle for 4th this evening. Potentially to see exactly what happens. But Chris Wheatley will be in 5th, Brian Moncani in 6th, Stu and Nath John will be 7th and 8th, potentially Brian Ross will be 9th unless he gets up to Nath John, which he is doing spectacular. Nath John still has that indicator on, he's had that on for a few laps now. But it is looking likely now that Lee Fitzy going up towards the NGK chicane for the final time will take a first victory. And it will be a Welsh 1-2 for the podium, but it looking likely at the moment Lee Fitzy going round the final turn. Is he going to be about to cross the line? Yes, he's flashing the lights. He knows he's won this race. What a victory. Followed by Adam Morgan in 2nd. What another. So the Welsh boys are on the podium, but what about this? Dean Atkinson in Lexus RCF for the first time in 3rd. Craig Thomas unfortunately doesn't make the treble wins this season. Chris Wheatley in 5th place, followed by Brian Moncani in 6th place. So the Stu Shelton battle was obviously Stu finishes 7th. Nath John now coming through the final 2 turns. He's got Brian Ross behind him at the moment, potentially chasing him for 8th place at the moment. Nath's just going to hold on very well, spectacularly, as we've got Brian Ross also trailing him in a 9th. So Brian's had a bit of a weird evening. Dan Cope 10th at the moment, potentially 10th. Steve Stones in 11th, and poor old Excalibur in 12th at the moment. But you know, he'll get there. He will pick up the pace, I'm sure he will. And unfortunately Bruno Batica's NSX expired with an electrical issue, I believe, so it's going to be very interesting to see what goes on, but it will be very interesting. So there you go. It is looking likely Lee Fitzy will take his first victory of the season, which he does. So that's super. So he went up from 4th positions. And what an absolute what a great race that was. So that was absolutely epic. I'm just going to get the race results, and then we'll go through exactly a few key moments. So in 1st place was Lee Fitzy, followed by Adam Morgan, followed by Dean Atkinson. So Dean Atkinson gets that Lexus RCF onto the podium. Craig Thomas in 4th doesn't make it a treble win this season, unfortunately. Chris Wheatley in 5th, followed by Brian Moncani, followed by Stu, followed by Nate Fletch and Brian Ross. Dan Cope 10th, Steve Stones 11th, and Excalibur 12th. Sadly, we lost Bruno Batica with an electrical issue in his NSX, which was a bit unfortunate. But Craig Thomas actually gets the fastest lap on lap number 21 with a 1:56.066. So yes, it is going to be very interesting to see what exactly happens. It is going to be very close and probably very personal going into the next round of the championship, but I'm sure this evening will be very interesting to see exactly what happens. I'm just going to check something very quickly. But it is going to be very close. So it looks like there has been a bit of issues this evening, but hopefully we'll have a look into it. Potentially with this evening's race, it has been very close and very personal some of the times, but it will be interesting to see exactly what happens going into the next race. As of next week, but I believe I'm going to find out. Just bear with 1 sec, guys. We'll find out where next week is. So if you do like what you see here, guys, do like and subscribe, and also do check us out on Facebook. And also don't forget, Wednesday is the manufacturer race, the manufacturer championship, brought to you by Will Sutters. He's doing the commentary for that. Then you have on Friday is the final round of the British Touring Car Championship, Shell Lawn British Touring Cars, and also you have the BTCC Blueprints Porsche Caymans, and it is looking likely we are at the Yam and Magaibe circuit, so that's going to be very, very interesting heading over to Japan. It's going to be very technical and twisty, that circuit, but you know, most of the guys are going to be on great form, so hopefully Craig Thomas can pick up potentially a third win of the season, but we will see about that. Obviously, you know, it's going to be very interesting going into the next couple of races, but it will be very much quite interesting. But yes, do sure to check out what's going on. It's going to be very interesting to see exactly what happens going into next week. Well, the remaining final round of the BTCC Blueprints Porsche Caymans on Friday. We are here at the Nurburgring GP, and then it will be also the final round of the Sheldon British Touring Cars. So yes, I will see you guys in hopefully Friday when I do comms for the Porsche Caymans. But until then, guys, stay safe and have a good week and take care. I've been Hoppers. Ta-ra.